Page 166, Chapter 9, Healing of the Gouty Person's Grief. Then he stepped into the boat, returned to the other side again, and came into a town. And behold, they brought to him a gouty person, lying on a bed, and in deep grief on account of his disease. So he did not walk, or could not walk, in his pain. When Jmmanuel saw his trust, he spoke to the paralytic, quote, "Be comforted, because your trust in the power of your spirit, or consciousness, and your confidence in my teaching, which is truly the teaching of the nature and of the creation, will help you if you follow my words in good will." Jmmanuel spoke thus for a long time with the gouty person, and taught him much about the power of the spirit, or consciousness, and the will, and the sick person understood what was taught to him, and thus he accepted it as good knowledge. So he soon lost his grief, rose from the bed, took up his bed, and walked from there. And behold, some of the scribes, who heard of this, began stirring up talk among the people, quote, "This man slanders God and our holy teachings." But since Jmmanuel understood their thoughts, he spoke, quote, "Why do you think such evil thoughts against that which is your better teaching? If only you would accept what is truly the truth, as has been taught since ancient time by the, quote, teaching of the prophets. But truly, if the knowledge and the wisdom and the love are not given, then it is not easy to say, quote, your trust in the teaching and in your will have helped you, or to say, quote, stand up and walk, if someone has succumbed in anxiety to grief and lameness. Truly, knowledge and wisdom and love must be given, so that the anxiety and the grief or the lameness may be released or resolved. So that you may know that I am a human being like you, and yet know how to introduce or to use the power, knowledge, wisdom, and love, of my spirit or consciousness, I commanded the gouty person in his grief, quote, follow my words in the power of thought, or in understanding. So also follow your will and get up. Pick up your bed and walk away. And he stood up, took up his bed, and walked away. When the people saw and heard this, they became fearful, but then praised or extolled the new wondrous teaching of Jmmanuel, which gave such might to the human beings. And as Jmmanuel was leaving, he saw a man who was sitting at the tax office, who was named Matthias, or Matthew, and asked whether he may comprehend or learn the, quote, teaching of the prophets. And so Jmmanuel spoke to him, quote, follow me as a disciple and grasp onto or learn what I teach. And so he followed him in the teaching, and often accompanied him around the land. And it came to pass, as he was eating in a house, 5 tax collectors and unknowing ones and truth-seekers came and ate at the table with Jmmanuel and his disciples and disciplesses. When the Pharisees heard this, 2 of them went and spoke to his 3 disciples and the 2 disciplesses, quote, why is your master eating with the tax collectors and the unknowing? When Jmmanuel heard this, he spoke, quote, the healthy do not need a physician, but the sick do. And the knowing do not need the teaching, but the unknowing do. And those who were not led into confusion do not need the instruction, but those who were led into confusion do. Go therefore and recognize the falseness of your false and confused teachings. Resolve the falsehood and confusion, and grasp onto or learn the truth, so you do not lead into confusion those human beings who thirst for truth. Fasting, line 15. Then 3 disciples and 5 disciplesses of Johannes came to him, saying, quote, Master, why do we and the Pharisees fast, while you and your disciples and disciplesses do not fast? Jmmanuel said to them, quote, how can the unknowing fast and suffer while they are being taught knowledge? And how can the teacher fast when he is teaching knowledge to the unknowing? Know that the unknowing only grasp or learn with hindrance or difficulty, and the teacher has to teach with difficulty if they starve in hunger and their thoughts are only in suffering. Truly I say to you, your teachings are false if you fast according to the laws of a cult or religion sect. Fasting does not serve a false teaching or a belief, but rather the health of the body and the growth of the spirit or consciousness. But if it is burdened by hunger, then it does not grasp, or it does not learn. No one mends an old garment with a new patch of cloth, because the patch will tear again from the garment, and the rip will become worse. And so it is with the grasping, or learning, of the spirit or consciousness, which only grasps or learns if it does not suffer from hunger. Neither is new wine put into old wineskins, for they will tear, and the wine will spill, and the wineskins will break, or burst, be destroyed as a result of the fermentation of the new wine. Instead, new wine is put into new wineskins, so both are preserved. The daughter of Jairus, or Jairus, the woman with hemophilia. Verse 22. While Emmanuel was talking with them, one of the community leaders came and prostrated himself before him, saying, quote, "My daughter has just died, but if you come and lay your hand on her, then she will live." And Emmanuel stood up, and his disciples and disciplesses followed him. And it happened that a young man-woman, or hybrid equals part man, part woman, but one of sustainable or strong/pronounced virility or procreative power, who had the flow of blood, or equals hemophilia or bleeding disorder, for 12 years, stepped up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment. She spoke to herself, quote, "If only I could touch his garment, I would soon be cured." Then Emmanuel turned around and saw her, and he said, quote, "Be comforted. Your trust, or certainty that it would help, has helped you." And the man-woman was well from that hour on. And when he came into the community leader's house, and saw the pipers and the turmoil, or lamenting for the dead, of the people, who were mourning and lamented that the community leader's maiden lay there motionless, and they assumed she was dead, then he touched her and looked at her, and then he spoke, quote, "Depart, because the maiden is not dead, but is sleeping in insignificance, or faint." And they laughed at him. But after the people were driven out, he entered and held out a salt, or smelling salt, and stimulated her breath, and the maiden awoke. And he took her by the hand and spoke, quote, "I order you to get up and walk." And the maiden stood up and walked, and soon the news of this spread through the entire land, in which case, however, it was wrongly reported that Emmanuel had awakened the maiden from the dead. A blind man and a mute. Verse 31. And as Emmanuel left and continued on from there followed him a blind man, who, after an evil happening, or mishappening, could not see any more, because he evermore, or constantly, crampfully closed his eyes. And he cried, quote, "O Master, you son of wisdom and knowledge, who can use the power of your spirit, or consciousness, take pity on me." And as he arrived at his house, the blind man stepped up to him, and Emmanuel spoke, quote, "Do you have confidence that I can do this?" And he answered, "Yes, Master." Then he touched his eyes, saying, quote, "Be it done to you according to your trust and according to your will. Open your eyes and see." And he opened his eyes in an arduous manner, and he could see again. Then Emmanuel urged him, saying, quote, "See to it that no one learns what happened to you." However, the man went out and spread the news of him and of the happening throughout the land, and he told it in such a wise as if he had been truly blind, so the people believed him. After the man had left, it happened that they brought to him a man who was mute after a serious calamity or mishappening, and also possessed by evil grief. And when Emmanuel deeply or suggestively spoke very long with him and resolved his grief, behold, the muteness was driven out, and soon the man was speaking again. And the people were amazed, saying, quote, "Such things have never been seen in the land. How mighty is this new teaching of Emmanuel about the power of the Spirit, or consciousness, that it does or works such miracles." However, the Pharisees said, quote, "He drives out the evil spirits, or demons, through their supreme chief, or supreme chief of the spirits and demons equals the devil. And he defames God our Lord." But they discussed among themselves, quote, "Who is this Emmanuel? For he possesses greater wisdom, and thus greater knowledge than we. His teaching is mightier and truer than ours, so he endangers us. We must act, so that he will be seized, so that he will suffer death." The Great Harvest, verse 44. And Emmanuel went about in many cities and villages, taught in their temples, and taught the mystery of the creation, and of the laws of the nature, so that the spirit, or consciousness, could attain mightiness. He taught about the spiritual, or consciousness-based realm, within the human beings, and healed many illnesses, and, thus, many infirmities, with deep words, and with herbal drinks, and herbal ointments. And when he saw the suffering among the people, he took pity on them, for they were spiritually, or in consciousness, languishing, or dried up, and scattered like a flock of sheep without a shepherd. Then he spoke to his disciples and disciplesses, who accompanied him in large numbers, quote, "The harvest is great, but there are few laborers, that it may be brought in. Seek and hold edification in your spirit, or consciousness, that more laborers will be found for the harvesting." And so it came to pass that laborers for the harvest were found, who crowded around Emmanuel to become disciples and disciplesses.